Hello, welcome to Chapter 3 of Organizational Behavior. In this chapter, we'll explore emotions, attitudes, and job satisfactions. Um, okay, so in this chapter, it's not an overly complex chapter, but it sets the groundwork for some things we're going to be discussing in the future. And basically, we want to understand what are our emotions, our moods, how do they influence us at work, um, how can they be how can we understand them better to enable us to understand our own emotions or emotions of the people we work with? How do emotions translate into attitudes? Um, and how does this all get wrapped up into how you feel about your job? Okay, so first let's discuss what emotions. I think everybody here knows what an emotion is or a mood. Um, we've all have them every day every minute of every day, for most of us. So an affect is a range of emotions and moods that people experience throughout their life. Um, affects have important implications not only for our lives in general, but also our behavior at work. Now, emotions, there are a whole host and range of emotions that we're going to talk about. And they can be viewed as positive and negative, I guess, if you want to put them in the black and white boxes. But the emotions are really your feelings towards situations, people, work, a whole host of things. It's just the basically breaking down how you feel. All right. Okay. So what is emotional intelligence? Well, we know what intelligence is as far as IQ, how smart you are, and things of that nature. But emotional intelligence is sort of a different intelligence than we're used to talking about or measuring. And essentially, it's our ability to understand, interpret other people's emotions as well as our emotions, and to use that understanding to facilitate better relationships, whether at work or at home. Um, and emotional intelligence isn't something that is really taught, that you've most likely you pick this up living life and understanding people and talking to people and dealing with your emotions and having to deal with other people's emotions. um, in a work situation, you definitely want to avoid having your emotions get the better of you. um, you want to step back and think about things logically, and when you do have strong emotions, think about where they're coming from, what's causing them, and are they useful or detrimental to the situation. So this emotional intelligence is what a lot of us call maturity. So a mature person is better. It's what we call more self-aware. So someone who's more self-aware understands, you know, the emotions that they're having and the impact that they could possibly, have on other people. So if you're angry at somebody and you have this emotion of anger, there are appropriate times to express it and appropriate ways to express it and appropriate times to know, gee, I'm not really angry at this person per se. You know, I'm not really angry at my dog. I'm angry at my boss, and I guess I'm just taking this anger home, and then that would be an awareness of your emotions. So you can kind of double check and say, okay, let me leave that anger at work and not bring it home. Now, and that would be sort of a self-management, regulating and thinking before you say or do something, controlling your emotions. You can't control them 100%, obviously, but self-management is really exerting some kind of emotional control and emotional intelligence over how you manage and cope with your emotions. Now, a social awareness is more about the group. So it's understanding the emotions of family members, other relationships, coworkers, and then a relationship management is using this understanding and your emotional intelligence to build and maintain good relationships with people, develop friendships, strengthen friendships, commitment. Uh, these all The self, social, self-management, and relationship management are all intertwined with the emotional intelligence. So the stronger you are in your emotional intelligence, the more you can rule your emotions, and the more you can understand other people's emotions and not let their emotions affect you in the wrong way. So it's all about understanding. Okay, now moving on, we're talking about self-conscious emotions. Um, about the subconscious. Well, the self-conscious emotions come from an internal source. Like your subconscious is internal. So shame, guilt, embarrassment, and pride, um, these are generated from within. Now, you have your social emotions, if you want another category, where they arise from external forces. How people affect your life, and comparing yourself to other people can develop jealousness, envy, pity. So, you can think of sort of emotions as introverted and extroverted in some ways. Um, just to give you, a basic idea. Now, both of these, your internal and external emotions, or your self-conscious or social emotions, need to be um, managed in some way and put into perspective. And, no one should act on emotion alone. There's some intelligence should be injected to think about where are these emotions coming from? Why are they so strong? And are they out of proportion with the situation? I remember I remember one time I was really angry about something at work. I didn't get a raise or some such thing early on in my career, and I remember I was talking to someone about it, and they said, you're reacting to this situation. You're overreacting to the situation. And for example, say you got a bad cut on your arm or hand, and it's bleeding, and you may need a couple of stitches. How upset are you over that? And I said, well, I've had that before. I'm not too upset. It's, it happens. You can take care of it. I said, well, would you rather have a bad cut in your hand or this situation? Or are they about the same? And I said, well, of course, this situation would be preferable to a bad cut. And I said, well, why are you dealing with your emotions so much stronger in this situation compared to, you know, a worse situation? So it just puts things in perspective a little bit. Okay. So, all right. So moods. Um, Now, emotions tend to be short term and clearly targeted at someone or something or some situation. Moods are more um, an overarching type of feeling of either positive and negative states of mind that can persist for some time. You can come to work in a bad mood and be in a bad mood all day, and then come home and be in a bad mood. Everyone seems to have occasional moods, and we each know the full range of possibilities, and repercussions that they could have. Um, I mean, how often do you wake up in the morning and feel excited or refreshed or happy or sleepy or grouchy, depressed? I mean, that could be a mood that starts the day, and how long does that last? For some people, after their first cup of coffee or their drive to work, that passes. And some people, it could follow them throughout the day. Now, in organizational behavior, um, we're very much interested in moods and um, how they affect your performance at work. Um, so that's really, since a mood could be something that could even last for months in some really bad cases, it's interesting to organizational behavior. How can companies facilitate more positive moods, which generally leads to more job satisfaction and higher productivity? A lot of the research could go into what triggers specific moods. Um, you know, and a mood is like a more persistent feeling over that could be with you. You're not even conscious of it, but it's just affecting most of the actions you have for the day. So here's a little chart on emotions and moods, and you can see trying to kind of look at the difference. And the big difference to me is the amount of lasting power. Um, you know, um, And the moods basically affect your emotions for the day. Emotions um, are more direct, a more now type of feeling, where mood is more of an overarching feeling that lasts for a particular length of time. And both moods and emotions have a source. Although usually both of them can be difficult to understand what the source is. But once you do understand the source of your mood or your emotion, then you can take steps to really think about it logically and figure out, is it appropriate and what should be done, about it. Now, okay, so if we look at the major emotions, there's six major emotions that we talk about: joy, love, sadness, surprise, fear, and anger. And these are, I mean, I'm sure there's many more emotions that you could, in betweens, nuances that you could talk about, but this is generally the major emotions that people experience on a day-to-day basis. Um, Now, you know that emotions can be infectious, and they have your emotions or your moods can spill over to other family members, other coworkers. So that's why that saying, one bad apple spoils the whole bunch. You could have a situation that, if you have a very person who's in a very depressed or just in a very bad mood, and he talks to people about a situation, isn't happy, it could spill over to many others. And in the workplace, you don't want this contagion. You want to be able to, identify someone who has a particularly bad mood or issue or problem, and you want to resolve it before it spreads, to the other employees and ruins their day. Now, emotional labor is an interesting concept, and what we're talking about here is the need to show emotion in order to perform a job well. So some of you may have had jobs in the past where you had to fake your emotions. So imagine yourself as a waitress that's taking orders, and you have to be, you want to get a good tip, so you have to be friendly and pleasant and seem like you care about the customer and how their experience is going, and you're cheerful, and you're creating a mood, and that's work. If you really come to work as a waiter or waitress and you're not in the mood to deal with people or be nice to people, it could be a huge amount of emotional labor to call up those emotions that your job calls for. Um, and you can see that sometimes emotional labor isn't invoking emotions, it's suppressing it. So, say you're the president of the United States and you get mad at something, or you want to cry, or you really have to temper your emotions a great deal, or if you're the leader of a company, or a leader in the family, your amount of fear you display in a situation could scare the kids. So you have to work to contain some of your emotions. Um, Now, if you have emotional dissonance, then the emotions you're feeling are not consistent with the emotions you're trying to project. So this is just, part of emotional labor. We're expected to act in a particular way with one emotion, but we actually quite feel another emotion. For example, maybe you're interacting with your boss and you want to pretend you're friends with your boss and you're okay with your boss and you're friendly with them and happy and laughing at their jokes, but really you're saying inside, this guy's a jerk and I hate him. You can't really express that. Otherwise, you lose your job. And, no one wants that. Okay. Um, if we talk about uh, deep acting. Now, this is sort of the emotional labor is you're basically acting. So trying to really modify your feelings to better fit the situation. So it's almost trying to mask and replace your feelings to a point where you're believing it. Um, Now, and surface acting is really trying to hide what you're exactly feeling. So even though you're unhappy about the situation, you smile anyway. You just display on your face that you're happy or you're okay, but inside you're not. So that's just another nuance of this. Okay, so when we talk about display rules, um, now every society has these display rules which govern the degree to which it's appropriate to display emotions. In some cultures, your emotions. You're not supposed to display a lot of emotions. In other cultures, um, you can display a certain amount of emotion, or is accepted in public. In different cultures, in the United States, we're sort of kind of in the middle. Some cultures can be a lot more restrained. Japanese or British culture may be downplaying an excessive display of emotion, while other cultures, um, I don't want to name the cultures so not to offend anybody, but other cultures, I'm sure you know people from certain other cultures, can be, their culture is a lot more expressive in their emotions, which isn't a bad thing. It's a lot more, they're a lot more honest with themselves. Um, so, in some, when some stores move into different countries, a lot of the stores want to mandate that people express a certain amount of happiness and friendliness towards towards the customers. And in some cultures, it's not going to work well. For example, there are some cultures that are very serious, and having, you know, it can almost seem phony to them when someone's pretending to be too happy or too friendly in the work in a business in a store. I'm sure you've been to stores where you kind of get that feeling that this isn't genuine, and it can make you uncomfortable. Um, okay. I know, in the business world, when you're at work, it's definitely not okay to cry or scream or yell or show excessive anger, but it is certainly okay to laugh or smile or show more positive emotions. I think are more generally accepted as far as what you can display. The negative emotions are sort of the group where it's frowned upon to really display. And then sometimes greatly looked down on, or gives the impression that it's a sign of weakness. So each culture, and this is something difficult for organizations when they move into other cultures, is trying to figure out what's appropriate when dealing with the general public of that other culture. Okay, so let's look at this chart. How do emotions and moods influence behavior in organizations? Well, you have the work environment, which is basically the characteristics of the job demands, emotional labor requirements. If you think of certain jobs like waitress, flight attendant, um, greeter at a store, there's a certain amount of emotional labor involved in those jobs. Um, Now, things that are happening to you at work, daily hassles, setbacks, um, you know, surprises, good news. These are all things that can, affect your emotions at work, and then you have a reaction to this. It can be either negative or positive. Now, your personality and your mood play into this a great deal. Some people can handle certain events, and some people can't. Now, the way your emotional reaction um, affects you is going to determine whether or not you feel good about your job, which is overall job satisfaction, and is also going to affect your job performance. If you have a very negative reaction here, oh, hey Smith, here is a 700-page report I want you to review before you go home tonight. You may have a very negative reaction to that, and there your job performance may be, screw it, I'm not going to do it, or I'm just going to do it really fast, I'm not going to do a good job at it. So your emotions definitely affect how you're going to feel and react about your job. And the satisfaction is more how you feel about your job. The job performance is more about how you react. Okay, so let's switch over to attitude. Now, and it's common to say that someone has an attitude today, but attitudes don't necessarily have to be negative. A lot of times that when someone says, "Oh, he or she has an attitude," that usually is invoking a negative emotion, but that could also be a positive emotion. And it's a way that someone or something, it's a way someone responds to their environment. So when you say, for example, that you like or dislike someone or something, you're expressing an attitude. But it's important to remember that an attitude, like a value, um, is a construct. Uh, One can never see or touch or feel an attitude. So attitudes can be, if you look at some sources, they can be, s- let's see, from friends, parents, role models, culture can influence your attitude. Um, I'm trying to, people pick up on your attitude based on the things you say, your sarcasm, your body language to circumvent. So you're communicating not only just through words, but also your facial expressions, your body posture. I mean, attitudes are just they kind of pour off of you. Now, you could have a good attitude towards one person, someone else comes in the room, and suddenly your mood changes because your attitudes towards them is not good based on past dealings. So, and attitudes are something that generally are difficult to change if you have attitudes towards certain people or companies or situations. These are something you definitely have to work on and think about and work to change your response or re-educate yourself on how you think or feel about something in your environment. Okay. Now, if we look at, um, we break down attitudes a little bit more, you know, there's a cognitive dissonance as far as if you're looking at an attitude, and this is um, a state of inconsistency between the individual's attitude um, and between, you know, how can I say it? It's sometimes hard to kind of comprehend. Um, it's really a difference between I guess your attitude and your behavior. Uh, perhaps you have an attitude about that recycling is good for the economy. You realize that you aren't always recycling everything you can. Um, so it's sort of a cognitive inconsistency between the attitude and the behavior. Your attitude is recycling is good, but then you don't always recycle everything that you can. Or things that you could easily recycle, you don't. You know. Um, So this is something that, more of a contradiction, if you can kind of think of it, in that manner. Now that can be an affective component and behavioral component. Um, now the affect or the affective component is specific feelings regarding um, the impact of the cognitive component. The behavioral content is the intention to behave in a particular way based on one's attitude involved with these components. Now, in organizational behavior, we're interested. It kind of flows this way, where you have a cognitive um, feeling or behavior based on your beliefs, your attitudes, and that can create an affect, a positive or negative feeling that you feel that you just start to feel, and then you can, you when you feel I feel bad. Why do you feel bad? Well, the affect is you feel bad, and then you can think about it, you discover what's making you feel bad, and then the behavior that comes afterwards would be what you do because of it. I hate my job. Okay, you kick the chair in your office across the room, or you throw your books off your desk, or you yell at a coworker. That would be the behavior. So an example could be that you believe every Wednesday people should wear the color green. That's your cognition saying that. Wednesday comes, nobody's wearing green. You feel bad that you're the only person wearing green. No one else cares about this. Your behavior is to run around the office spilling green ink on everyone's shirt so you could say that everyone's wearing green. Or yelling at everybody who's not wearing green. Just, as a really poor example. um, okay. Now, when you have this cognitive dissonance, and, the mismatching between attitudes and behavior, that can be reduced by trying to work to change your underlying attitude. So if you have this attitude that you don't like tall people, and it's for no good reason, but somehow you have this attitude, and you need to work to realize that tall people are good people too, and there's nothing to really um, no reason to have an attitude towards them. So if you work on changing that behavior, change that attitude, that will change your future behavior. So when you meet tall people, you're not afraid of them or angry at them. Um, and you just need to develop, a rationale for explaining this to yourself. That this is inconsistent. I shouldn't have these feelings. They're not logical. They're not based on anything. Maybe they were based in the movie you saw um, as a child about giants, and that's how you develop this, something ridiculous. And people have ridiculous emotions and attitudes, and they have to reconcile them. Otherwise, it's going to hold them back. Now, job satisfaction is basically how you feel um, at the end of the day, at the end of the week, every minute during the day. Now, you're not always 100% satisfied with your job all the time, but there should be more positive than negative feelings towards your job to say that you have good job satisfaction. And a lot of things that contribute to job satisfaction is the environment you work in, the people you work with, the work that you're doing, and how that fits into your personal beliefs and reward systems. For example, you know if you're working for a charitable organization that does good in the world, that may help you to feel more satisfied that your job actually has some sort of meaning, or you're helping people. Maybe you're a psychologist and you talk to people and help them through their problems, and that gives you a good amount of satisfaction. Job involvement um, is just what it sort of sounds like. How involved are you in your job? And sometimes not being involved enough in your job can lead to low, you know, job satisfaction if you really feel disconnected or you're not completely dedicated to the work. And when you really like a job and you have high job satisfaction, you can get into work, you're just busy, having a good time all day at work. And at the end of the day, you say, hey, where did the day go? It felt like 5 minutes. I used to have this joke when I was a full-time accountant early on in my career is, if I only had a week left to live, I'd like to work as an accountant for that week, because the weeks I worked as an accountant, each week felt like a year. So if that was my last week to live, I could make it feel like a whole year if I was doing my accounting work. You know, um, just a little joke there. I don't tell too many of them, but okay. So what is organizational commitment? Um, and this could be, this is an attitude you have. What is your commitment to your organization, or the degree of loyalty, you feel towards the business you work for? Individuals with a high organizational commitment identify closely and strongly with an organization, and take pride in considering themselves a member of this company. Um, Now, rational commitment reflects feelings that um, the job serves one's financial, developmental, and professional interests. That the job is, good for you because it's getting you where you need to go. An emotional commitment reflects the feelings that um, how can I say this? It's sometimes hard to describe. Um, so, a rational commitment is um, what we were talking about before. It's more based on logic. An emotional commitment is more based on just raw emotions, and how, you know, I guess you could say the emotional commitment's more about, you know, um, how your performance is affecting the company, is helping the company achieve what it needs to achieve, or how your performance helps your team members. It's sort of this emotional satisfaction you get from being committed and to work and um, doing well. Employee engagement is looking at how um, a sense of connection, an active engagement, where an employee, shows up willingly to help others, goes out of their way to do something extra for the company, goes the extra step in the work that they're performing. So it's a measure of how involved they are, and how much the work actually means to them as an employee. Okay. Okay. In the book, you'll find this the Minnesota Satisfaction Questionnaire, um, and the Job Description Index. Um, and these two tools can address, components of job satisfaction, and what it is that you should be concerned about. The If you go into the PowerPoints for the class and you click on if you have the actual PowerPoints open outside of this lecture, you can click on the survey link and it'll take you to that survey. It's sort of an interesting thing. I think they also have the survey backed up in the textbook. Interesting thing to look at. So let's look at the different components of job satisfaction. You have the work itself. What level of responsibility do you hold? How much does it interest you? Is there a growth in this work where you can grow in your ability to perform the work, or your levels of difficulty? The quality of supervision. Um, how much help do they give you to do your job well, or to learn more about your job and perform better? And what kind of social support they provide you in terms of fitting in at the company and in the social environment of the company? Your relationships with your coworkers. Do you have a good relationship? Do you share friendships or social harmony and respect for each other? Do you go out to lunch with them? Do you talk about your families? Do you have outside work parties or celebrations? These all can help. Sometimes social relationships are the only thing holding a lot of people to a job that they otherwise don't like, or don't care for at all. It's the people at work. Um, and it's really hard for organizational behavior, um, for people to facilitate good relationships among coworkers in a company. It's just something that is sort of hit or miss, and it's very difficult for the company to set up a policy where that's going to automatically happen. Much of that is up to the employees. Promotional opportunities, or promotions, raises, things where you can advance your pay or your stature within the company. And I guess broken out of that, or you can think of separately, is just rewards pay, sort of a bonus. So not a typical annual raise, but more of a bonus, or a commission for a job well done. So these are what we call the five, I call them characteristics of job component, or things that employees can think about and rate separately about how they feel. I think the most important is really the work itself. That should be the most important. If you enjoy the work itself, that's going to be its biggest reward, because you can always have a good or bad supervisor. You can always have good or bad coworkers coming and going. And if you're in the job basically for the money and the promotions, that's not going to be very satisfying. Even if you consistently get, when I worked as an accountant, I wasn't really satisfied with that work or that job. And I did get a lot of promotions and bonuses and pay raises and congratulations, you're doing a great job. And that worked for a while, but I still always felt a certain sense of emotional dissonance to the job. I just, no matter how much, at a certain point, money didn't matter anymore. It was about, I'd like to have a job where I go into each day and I enjoy it, and I enjoy the people I work with and the work I'm doing, and it feels like it means something, and it can, change the world in some way, or help people to have better lives. Okay, so let's talk about some withdrawal behaviors. So there's a strong relationship between how a person feels about the job satisfaction, and the physical withdrawal behaviors like absenteeism and turnover. Workers who are more satisfied with their jobs are out of work or calling sick a lot less than those who are dissatisfied. If you're dissatisfied with your job, you have a high tendency to call in sick, come in late, leave early. There was this one study I was reading. I think it comes from people who wrote the Freakonomics book, and they were looking at companies, and they saw the employees that came into the parking lot and took the time to back their car into their parking space were much more unsatisfied than people who came in and just pulled their front into the parking space. And they were saying, when they boiled this down, it was the fact that when the people got to work, they so much dreaded the job that they actually took the extra time and effort to back their car in, so when they leave the company, when it's time to go home, they can get out of that parking lot a few seconds faster. Which I thought was an interesting behavior. So satisfied workers, if you can keep your workers satisfied, they'll work a lot longer, and it's always a benefit for companies. The longer you stay at a company, the more useful and valuable you become to the companies. But only satisfied workers tend to stay long. Dissatisfied workers tend to be unpredictable. They'll quit more often, look for other work while they're working, or just have general bad attitude during the day because, you know, and because of this bad attitude, they withdraw. They won't attend. They'll try to do the least. They maybe will shun themselves away from, you know, office birthday parties or events or outside of work events. And it can be a real burden, or downward drag on the emotions for everybody in the company that comes in contact with these people. Um, all right. So if you do have a company where there's a lot of many people calling in sick a great deal of the time, you're going to be losing experience. There's going to be the cost to replace these people can be excessive. If in some jobs you may not even be able to find the people to replace them, and all the current workers will have to compensate, and that sort of brings down the whole performance level of the whole company. Okay, so if we look at this organizational citizenship, um, the job satisfaction can be closely linked to this organizational citizenship behaviors. Um, and these are discretionary behaviors, sometimes called OCBs, that represent a willingness to go beyond the call of duty, to go the extra mile. A person who is a good organizational citizen does extra things that help others, um, or advance the performance of the organization as a whole. Um, so it's really someone who's just a good corporate citizen. That not only does what they're required to do, but goes above and beyond to help other people they're working with, to create stronger relationships, to take care of an upset customer or a team member, take on extra tasks when coworkers are ill or absent, a willingness to volunteer for special committees or task force, try to put everything into a positive context and a constructive context. So these are the employees you definitely want to keep. Now, there are three theories between job satisfaction and job performance. Um, Now, job satisfaction causes performance. So if you have good job satisfaction, that's going to lead to good job performance. Performance causes satisfaction. So if you perform well and if you perform well and you can have a pride in what you built, and look at, I built this house or I completed this document, that causes satisfaction. So sort of a two-way street there. Now rewards, if you're rewarded, that can cause satisfaction and performance. So if you can meet a certain target and you get a commission, that's going to help your performance, encourage you to perform better. And if you do make those performances and you get those rewards, you feel more satisfied with your job. So there's definitely a relationship between job performance and these three sort of theories. Now, just to look at satisfaction causes performance for a second. If job satisfaction causes high levels of performance, the message to managers is clear: to increase employees' work performance to make them happy. Researchers have found that a simple and direct link between individual job satisfaction at one point in time and later work performance and improvement in work performance. Okay, so if we go to the next one, and performance causes satisfaction. If high levels of job performance cause satisfaction, the message to the managers is different. Instead of focusing on job satisfaction as a precursor to performance, they try to create a high performance as a pathway to satisfaction. So just kind of logical that people feel good about their jobs when they perform well and they're able to, complete their tasks, and, sort of like when you do the class, working in the class, and you're doing a lot of work, and then you take the test and you perform well in the test, that gives you a certain amount of satisfaction that, oh, I put the hard work in, I'm learning a lot, and this class is, beneficial to me. Okay. I should have turned the slide before I started talking about that, but, just to reinforce it, an increase in employees' work performance will make them happy. That's if satisfaction causes performance. So, but job satisfaction alone isn't a complete predictor of work performance. That's, I guess, the kind of the theory. Um, to go back to performance causes satisfaction, this is where high performance is a pathway, like I said, to feeling good about your job. And, if performance leads to rewards, that's going to lead to satisfaction. Um, but only if those rewards seem fair and equitable. That they seem that the amount of performance, the amount of effort you put in, the results, that you're getting compensated fairly for it. That it isn't that everybody in the office gets the same bonus, no matter what type of effort you put in. It really has to be distinguished upon you and related to your performance. Okay. So if we look at a sort of a little flow chart, performance equals, you get rewards based on your performance, bonuses, commissions, and then if you perceive this as valuable, that will lead to job satisfaction. Now, the theory that I have a problem with this theory that rewards can cause both satisfaction and performance. Now, I believe that the work itself is what should cause your satisfaction, and that if you're looking for bigger raises and bigger bonuses to keep you satisfied, that only works temporarily. In my past, and when I talk to a lot of people, you get that raise or that bonus, and it feels really great. But a week later, you're back to feeling the way that you were feeling before. And if you're feeling unappreciated and and low job satisfaction before you get that bonus or raise, you may feel good that week, but you just think about this in your past. How long does that last before you're back to feeling dissatisfied again? Uh, so maybe it's a matter of how the wards are allocated. And if they're done, could there be a system where they can be done that produces better and longer lasting job satisfaction? Maybe, I'm not sure. Um, so just something to think about. What do you think? Um, if you won the lottery and you had one of those Powerball lotteries where you had $300 million in winnings, would you ever work again? If the answer is yes, you must have a high amount of job satisfaction. If the answer is, even with that money, I'd still work because I enjoy work for its sake of what I'm doing, I feel is important. If your answer is no, I'd quit right away, you probably have a low job satisfaction. So, there's some people who work because they like that social aspect of the work, or they like the accomplishment work produces. And these can easily be replaced sitting at home watching The Price is Right. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 3. Um, Later this week, we're going to move into chapter 4 and talk about perceptions and learning. And I look forward to talking to you then. Take care.